We've once again arrived at the best time of the year for college basketball fans, March Madness. The stage is set for things to pop off, and this year's tournament is featuring some of the biggest names in the college game, and as always, we're going to see some players come out of nowhere and dominate, which will shoot them up draft boards and set them up for a brighter future, and all of this brings us to today's video. Once again, we're back with another mock draft, going through the draft lottery based on how things currently stand before the craziness ensues. Then of course, after the tournament, we'll be back with another mock draft installment, adjusting accordingly, so stay tuned for that as well. Before we start though, I want to thank Pool Genius for sponsoring today's video. When it comes to March Madness, most people fill out their bracket completely wrong, and they don't even realize it. They pick their favorite teams, they follow the rankings, they listen to the so-called expert advice, yet without fail, their bracket is busted before the Sweet 16. If you actually want to win your bracket pool, Pool Genius is your secret weapon. It builds your optimal bracket in under a minute, no research, no stress. Haven't watched a second of college basketball this season? No problem. You can still build a better bracket than the guy who's been glued to every game. Just enter your pool's details, and Pool Genius does the heavy lifting, creating a fully optimized bracket using the most advanced bracket picking technology on the planet. That's why 52% of Pool Genius users win a bracket pool every year. If you are serious about winning, click the link in the description to get the Pool Genius Bracket Optimizer, your unfair advantage this March. Once again, thank you to Pool Genius for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to the mock draft. Starting with the number 1 pick in the draft, the Washington Wizards select Cooper Flagg from Duke. The Wizards are actually starting to put something together here, with guys like Jordan Poole bouncing back, Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly, and Bub Carrington showing promise, and veterans like Chris Middleton and Malcolm Brogdon guiding them along. So after a few years of despair, Cooper Flagg could be the final piece to turn this ship around. Flagg has been sensational from day one at Duke and has only gotten better over time, asserting himself more and more on offense as the year has gone on, while improving as a shooter too. He's genuinely having one of the best freshman seasons we've seen in a while, putting up 19 points and 8 assists per game, scoring efficiently inside and out. Plus, he's an absolutely elite defensive talent who makes his presence felt in so many different ways. He's the kind of player who can instantly elevate a team's floor, and his competitive drive makes him destined for greatness in the eyes of many, myself included, so Washington would not hesitate to take him with the first selection. Next up, with the second pick, the Utah Jazz select Dylan Harper from Rutgers. The top two this year has been relatively unchanged since the first month of the season, as Harper has tried his best to chase down Flagg at the top, but is now settling comfortably into the number 2 spot in this draft class, and there's definitely nothing wrong with that, because Harper is a special talent in his own right. Harper's a bulldog of a point guard who bullies smaller defenders with his husky 6'6" frame. He's incredibly crafty on the ball with masterful change of pace ability. He gets to the basket at will and puts a ton of pressure on defenses in the paint. He's an outstanding playmaker with useful creativity, and his numbers back up the talent, putting up 19 points per game. He did suffer a minor injury halfway through the season that set him back a little bit, and as a whole his Rutgers team hasn't been very good, but at full strength he's been a beast and could immediately step in and be a reliable starting point guard next year. So for a Jazz team with a hodgepodge of mediocre veterans and unsolidified youth, Harper could be the piece they build around through the remainder of their rebuild. Next, with the third pick, the Charlotte Hornets select VJ Edgecombe from Baylor. That's right, this is the first real shakeup of the mock, with Ace Bailey being the consensus number 3 pick pretty much all season long, but I've been high on Edgecombe all season as well, and am officially at the point where I'm comfortable putting him over Bailey. Edgecombe is the most explosive athlete in the entire draft class, with a 6'5" frame, and he honestly plays much bigger than that. He's another example of a player who got more and more comfortable as the season went on. He started to figure out how to translate his athletic gifts into production, and over the last month or so, he's taken his game to another level, helping Baylor make a final push to make it into March Madness. He's a shifty ball handler, he's being put into more on-ball situations now, being trusted to make more plays for himself and others on offense, and he's much more well-rounded in my opinion than Ace Bailey. So with that obviously being the debate at the number 3 spot, I favor Edgecombe, and I think NBA scouts will fall in love with the tools that he brings as well. Now with the 4th pick, the New Orleans Pelicans select Ace Bailey from Rutgers. Of course, Bailey is still a tremendous prospect in his own right, so he's not falling any further down the draft board than this, and the Pelicans would be happy to scoop him up here. With Brandon Ingram having been traded away at the trade deadline this year, Bailey could immediately come in and be his replacement. With the shot-making prowess very few others come close to possessing. My big concern with Bailey is that he relies way too heavily on that shot-making in difficult situations, settling for a lot of low-quality shots, tightly contested and off balance, and at the NBA level it is a lot more difficult to convert those attempts into makes when you're being defended by the best of the best as opposed to an average Big Ten defender. But if it can be honed in, it can be a lethal weapon at the NBA level for sure. Bailey is a 6'10" forward with natural scoring instincts and could be a great defender one day under the right circumstances, so by all means he's still a lock to be a top 5 pick. Next, with the 5th pick, the Toronto Raptors select Maluach from Duke. This is a bold prediction I've been thinking about for a while, but after taking a long hard look at what the Raptors have made it clear that they value, Maluach checks a lot of those boxes. The Raptors are building a lineup with as much versatility, length, and defensive upside as possible, with tons of long switchable wings, guards with crazy long wingspans, and depth, but they're just missing a center to complete the puzzle, and Maluach has all of the physical tools NBA teams want in a modern-day big man. Maluach is very raw on the offensive end, but that's something that teams can deal with as long as they do what centers are expected to do, aka protect the rim, defend hard, and rebound the basketball. Maluach is averaging a double-double per 36 minutes, he's explosive for dunks and finishes around the rim, and defensively his presence in the paint has been a key cog in Duke's dominance. Next, with the 6th pick, the Brooklyn Nets select Trey Johnson from Texas. Johnson is the leading scorer in the SEC this season as a freshman, putting up over 20 points per game, and he has the type of microwave heat check scoring ability that thrives at the NBA level. With the ball in his hands, he can generate a good look out of nothing, and unlike many volume scoring talents we see rising up the ranks, Johnson is actually efficient in this role, knocking down 40% of his threes, showcasing he can convert off the dribble and off the catch at an impressive rate. His Texas team is on the bubble right now, but if they do sneak into the March Madness tournament, he'll be ready to shine on the big stage. The Nets are going to be focused on taking the best player available here as well, so Johnson easily fits that bill. Next, with the 7th pick, the Oklahoma City Thunder, who own the 76ers pick, select Kasparas Jakucionis from Illinois. The rich just keep getting richer as the Thunder collect the 76ers pick unless it lands in the top 6, and with the Sixers having the 7th worst record in the league at the moment, they're right on the fringe of sending it OKC's way. If the Thunder get another lottery pick, they'll target a player with an NBA-ready game with a skill set that can translate immediately, and Jakucionis is a poised ball handler with an elite feel for the game and reliable floor general skills. Jakucionis has had a bit of a drop-off over the last few weeks, but is still producing steadily. He's just going to have to prove he can overcome his athletic limitations, which I'm still confident he can, it's just more notable than initially believed. If he falls to the Thunder, they'll gladly scoop him up because serving as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's backup to start his career, being able to learn from a point guard that also doesn't rely on explosiveness to dominate would be the absolute best case scenario. Next, with the 8th pick, the Chicago Bulls select Knueppel from Duke. The Bulls finally traded away Zach LaVine, indicating that the rebuild is on, and here they're going to be looking for the best player available. Knueppel came into the season pegged as a sharpshooter, and while early in the season he started slow, that slump actually opened the eyes of viewers to the fact that he's a much more well-rounded player than most thought as a ball handler, passer, and creator, and now that he's refound that shooting touch, knocking down 40% of his threes, he's a top 10 talent in the class, helping Cooper Flagg lead Duke to a 1 seed in March Madness. Next, with the 9th pick, the San Antonio Spurs select Asa Newell from Georgia. The Spurs will be ready to make a playoff push next season when Victor Wembanyama returns from injury, and De'Aaron Fox has a full season to work with the team, so they'll be looking for win-now players ready to contribute, and Newell has one of the highest floors in this year's class, even if his ceiling is slightly lower than others. Newell is an elite defender as a mobile 6'11" big man who can play either the 4 or the 5, so he can slot in next to Wembanyama in the lineup, and offensively, he doesn't need the ball in his hands to be effective. He's tremendous at moving off the ball, timing his cuts, he has great touch around the basket, and he's top 10 in the country in college basketball in total dunks. So while he gets the ball around the paint, he is going to go up strong and try to throw it down on your head. Next, with the 10th pick, the Portland Trailblazers select Colin Murray-Boyles from South Carolina. Murray-Boyles isn't necessarily getting a ton of attention this year playing on a lowly South Carolina team, but he's been shining bright all season and individually is a talent people will become very familiar with as the draft approaches. He's a dominant scoring talent that can play either forward position and generate a mismatch. He's way too quick and nimble for slower-footed power forwards to defend, but he's also way stronger than your average small forward, so he bullies his way to the basket with his footwork, face-up skill, and handle, which allows him to get good looks consistently. He does need to continue working on his three-point shot to really pop at the next level, but overall he's someone who has consistently risen up draft boards all season long. Next, with the 11th pick, the Miami Heat select Jeremiah Fears from Oklahoma. Oklahoma is another team on the bubble for March Madness, but I'm hoping they can sneak in so the world can see Fears' creativity and flair on display on the big stage. Jeremiah Fears, no pun intended, plays without fear on the court, and is a perfect example of the stats not telling the whole story. He carries a lot of the team's offense, utilizing his blistering blow-by speed, change of pace ability, and crafty handle to make plays for both himself and those around him, and when he heats up, he is a joy to watch. He does need to work on staying under control and limiting his turnovers, but at the NBA level, with better teammates, his creativity would really shine. Next, with the 12th pick, the Houston Rockets, who own the Suns pick, select Liam McNeely from Connecticut. The Rockets are one of the biggest breakout teams this season, dominating the defensive end, while their young guys are blossoming into key playmakers on the offensive end, but the team is still one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the NBA this year, and McNeely could come in and immediately provide sharp shooting for this group. His numbers may look mediocre on paper, but he's much more suited for an off-ball, floor-spacing role, and at UConn, he's needed to do a lot more than that, so he'll look a lot better in the role that he will likely settle into in the NBA, which in turn will open things up for the rest of the team on the ball around him. Next, with the 13th pick, the Dallas Mavericks select Ben Saraf from Israel. Saraf is an impressive passer who is very good at manipulating defenses and throwing off defenders with his unpredictability. He does his best work getting to the rim, and his reliable pull-up mid-range jumper in his arsenal is something that he utilizes quite a bit. His three-point shooting, though, needs a lot of improvement, but overall, there's a lot to like in his game. And finally, with the last pick in the lottery, the Atlanta Hawks, who own the Kings pick, select Rasheer Fleming from St. Joe's University. Fleming is another player who isn't very well known in the basketball world yet, but for St. Joe's, he's been stuffing the stat sheet, giving you a little bit of everything. He's averaging 16 points and 9 rebounds per game, he's blocking 1.6 shots per game and snagging 1.5 steals per game, he's incredibly efficient shooting the ball, making 56% of his shots from the field and 42% of his shots from 3, and he's a monster athlete at 6'9" with a ridiculous 7'5" wingspan. Because of the fact that he's playing in the Atlantic 10 and not a power conference, he's severely underrated right now, but he checks so many boxes and is absolutely worth a flyer in the middle of the first round because his upside is insane. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below which prospect you're intrigued with the most. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.